Hey everybody, it's Brent in Central Arkansas. Today's video is about some breeding, and I'm going to do some videos on techniques I use to cross various types of vegetables to create my own varieties. Not an expert, I should say that. So if you're going to do anything that I do or copy anything that I do, just always check other sources. This is just Brent sharing what he does with all you guys. So with that said, today's video topic is really how to cross-pollinate tomatoes. So I think I'm going to go into a little bit of detail for you, and hopefully you'll gain something from it if this sort of thing interests you. So let's get started. I'm going to use this tomato plant called Virginia Sweetmeat as the example of how to cross. So when I cross, you want to cross two different varieties. They're actually called technically cultivars. Cultivars are finished varieties, I guess is what they put it. You call them cultivars. Now, I don't really get hung up on terminology and all that. Like I said, I'm not an expert. What I'm showing you how to do is how to cross two different varieties. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to emasculate a flower. Now, tomato has both female and male parts within the same flower. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the male parts of a flower, and then after we do that, we're going to go to another plant and get the pollen off of a flower, a different cultivar, the two we're trying to cross, and we're going to put that pollen on the emasculated flower of this Virginia Sweetmeat. Okay, let's look at this plant. This is Virginia Sweetmeat, and it's got several examples of flowers on it that I can show you what to look for when you breed. Now next to it's a cherry, so it's kind of bleeding into the video here, this one and this one here. So let me pull it aside and show you. Now this flower right here is completely open. You see how the part here is hanging down and the petals are bent backwards? This one is too far. There's a good chance that that's already been pollinated. Also on this plant you can see a bud here that would probably work. It would probably work. It's beginning to open. The sepals, the outer green projectiles coming down to the point here, those are beginning to open, but that's not quite ideal yet. Neither is this one behind it, and definitely not the little immature one here that my finger's touching. Those are way too young because the stamen will not be ready to accept pollen for a while. So what you want to do is you want to get a flower like this that's on the verge of opening but hasn't spread, you know what I mean, spread and said, come get me, bees. You want to get one of these type of flowers. This one is definitely prime. This one is a possibility, but you'd have to come back several days in a row to make sure that got pollinated. Because when it opens fully like this, that's when you know it's ready to accept pollen. So in order for you to get to that point, it takes a couple more days. Like this one will probably open tomorrow, maybe the next day, and this one will be a day or two after that. So once you get to the point where you're ready to pollinate, you want to be able to pollinate as quickly as possible. Okay. It's kind of hard to get a camera up really close to a bloom that's ready. So we're going to try this one, and I'm going to be looking through the camera at the same time I'm preparing the flower. The tomatoes are a perfect flower. They have both male and female parts. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these green things. They're called sepals. See there? And then next while I'm here, we're going to remove the flower petals. These are the yellow part that attracts the bees or pollinators, and we're going to get those while we're here with my handy dandy tweezers. Okay, now this part right here is a male, and it holds, it's called an anthracone, and it's what holds the pollen. So I take the tip of the tweezers and I pull those out, and I just use my finger like this to get rid of pieces. Then we're going to slowly and gently turn the flower, and you got to be pretty, not firm, but you got to have confidence in what you're doing while you're doing this, or you will break the flower off. You got to be gentle and firm at the same time. So I'm removing the anthracone. Right here is another one, and as I turn it, I'm going to also move the sepal. Right there. More flower petals. And so on, all the way around. Twisting the tweezers from point to pull. Right now it's on point, so I can get an anthracone. Like so. And now you have to be careful when you turn it because you don't want to break it. Okay. Alright, so what I'm left with is this right here. That is the, I think it's called the pistil. It's the female parts. You got a stigma on the end. You've got an ovary, which is a really, on the bottom, it's a really small baby tomato. And the overall thing, I believe, is called a pistil. And so the pistil contains the stigma at the end, the ovary at the back, and the little shaft here. That's all the female parts. So basically I emasculated this flower. I took all the male parts off. So now we have something that looks like that. The next thing we need to do is find a pollen source, and then we're just going to rub that pollen source on all that right there. It's kind of a naughty thing, but that's how nature works. It's naughty and fun. So let's go get some pollen. Now this tomato we're going to get the male pollen from is called Rebel Yellow. It's a potato leaf variety, new for me this year, and really there's basically just one flower on this plant that's ready. You see the way that looks with the petals back and the anthracone sticking out? That means it is completely ready. That flower is screaming to pollinators to come attack it, come get all over it, and cause the pollen to fall within the anthracone there onto the stamen that's within, not the stamen, the pistil that's within that. The pistil, stigma, and ovary are all within the anthracone. So what we need to do is we need to vibrate that in such a way as to collect the pollen so we can put it on our newly emasculated flower from the other variety. The tools I'm going to use to collect pollen are a dark object. I don't even know what this thing came off of. I saw it and I was like, man, that'd be perfect for collecting pollen. I've seen people use like sunglasses, lenses, the dark sunglasses lenses. The next thing you need to do is a simulated pollinator. And I use this toothbrush. It's an old one we had, and electric toothbrush, and it vibrates and it simulates like a bee or another pollinator on the back of it. So let me see if I can get this in the camera for you while pollinating. Alright, so let's see if we can get some pollen to drop on this for the camera. stuff. See, I'll show you there. That is male pollen. Really cool stuff. That is half of what's needed to make a new variety. So now all you have to do, let me try to see if I can get this in focus, is you can take the end of that flower and you rub that pollen all over that female part. Now I know you're laughing and giggling, but this has to be done for the purpose of this video. Now I also take let me see if I can position the camera here and get it in the picture. I also have a little brush, makeup brush, a paint brush. I think this one's a paint brush. And while it's down on this, I gently touch it like this. But you got to be really careful because you can break that female pistil off, and then you got to start all over. So as difficult as this is, there, I think that's pretty good. Now I think the best times of the day to do this are, I would say, between 9 and 11, and that's because flowers tend to open up earlier for pollinators, and the longer that the day goes on, I know it's true with squash, if you afternoon, after 12 or so, the pollen may not be as productive as late morning. Now early morning you could have a lot of dew or moisture in the air, so you don't want to do it at 7 or 8. I always have good positive results when I do it somewhere between 9 and 11 is what I'm saying. Now I don't know the perfect answer for when to do it, other than to tell you that this flower was almost ready to open up. It would open up tomorrow. And I know that I need to do this at least 2 to 3 days with the same cultivar that I got the pollen from this time. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to repeat the process here. I'm not going to videotape it. It's the same thing. And then the day after that. Now when you get through emasculating and pollinating this, you need to identify it with some way. And I happen to have my method here. Now I use this string because all my pollinated I'm doing with one special tomato, and that tomato is crossing with several different varieties, so I don't have to label this. But this one I'm going to show you how I identify the way the 2 different varieties that are used. So I take a piece of tomato twine like you see here, I cut off a piece of it, and I put a piece of masking tape over it like that, and then I fold it where the sticky parts are touching each other. I then tie a square knot loop and cut off the excess, and I write on it the pollen donor or the variety that the male pollen came from. In this case, Rebel Yell. I then place it on the truss. I know that the mother is the variety Virginia Sweetmeat because that's the plant itself that this is sitting on. I know the male is Rebel Yell. Now when this starts to develop a fruit, let me show you what that looks like. Here's one that's starting to develop, and you know it's one that was bred because the sepals are off. And here's one that's a little further along, and you can see how it's getting thicker. Now, normally, when they get to this point, I pollinated 2 on this truss, I would remove all the others so all the focus could go into what I'm trying to do, cross the 2 varieties. So just to clarify, just to simplify, I would remove everything but the 2 crossed ones and leave it that way. So that is all that's needed to cross and identify. Now once they get full size and they're fully ripe, you can collect tomato seeds, and I've already got a video on that. And then when you grow it out, it will be half the Virginia Sweetmeat and half Rebel Yell. And that hybrid that cross is first generation, is called a hybrid. F1, filial 1, generation 1. There's one of my most furthest along crosses right there. And that's a good place to end this video. This is Brent, you guys, trying to keep it simple on how to cross tomatoes. We'll see you later.